back to Hidden Talents. So we've been being introduced to a lot of characters, and I, as a reader, sometimes like to just take a minute and assess before I jump into a new chapter. This chapter is called What's Short and Smart and Fun to Tease. So right away I'm starting to wonder what that has as a connection to this. But what I've noticed is I've been introduced to Torchy and Bloodbath. I know that the character Martin has a really great way of describing people. So I'm wondering what David Lubar has in store for me. Where is he wanting me to go in my head in terms of his plot? And one thing I want to ask myself is, why do you think all the characters have negative nicknames? There must be a reason, I'm thinking, that David Lubar wants these characters to have these nicknames and that he's highlighting them. It must have something to do with the storyline. So I'm going to be looking for other clues or other information as I read to answer my own questions about these nicknames. And I invite you to do that with me. All right. I was interrupted by a knock on the door. A short kid wearing glasses with thick black frames stuck his head in. "I brought back your magazine," he said to Torchy. "Come on in," Torchy said. The kid walked in and handed a car magazine to Torchy. He turned to me and said, "Hi." "That's Dennis Wu," Torchy said, "but everyone calls him Cheater." Cheater glared at Torchy. "Not everyone, and it's a lie. I never cheat. I don't have to." He turned back toward me. "Let me ask you this. Do I look like someone who needs to cheat on tests?" He stood very still, as if that would help me see what a wise and honest person he was. "No, you look awfully smart," I told him. "Heck, you look so smart I'd probably try to copy off your tests. Maybe I can sit next to you in class." He grinned. "Hey, thanks, you're okay." I shrugged. Apparently, the subtle art of sarcasm was wasted on him. I glanced over at Torchy, trying not to grin, but I couldn't help rolling my eyes toward the ceiling. "Wait, I get it," Cheater said. "You're playing with me, aren't you? You think I didn't know what you meant." "Relax, I was just kidding." I didn't feel like making any more enemies, even little ones with thick glasses. I held out my hand. "No hard feelings?" Cheater looked at me for a moment, as if trying to decide whether I was going to play some kind of joke on him. Then he reached out to shake hands. As he did, I suddenly wondered whether he was going to flip me through the air. I guess my expression changed enough that he could figure out what was on my mind. "Relax," he said. "You look like you think I'm going to kung fu you or something. Talk about stereotypes. Just because I'm Chinese, you think I'm some kind of karate kid. Let me tell you, I don't know any of that stuff. I wish I did." We shook hands. I really was just kidding, I told him. "Hey, I'm used to it," Cheater said. "My ancestors have been kicked around for centuries. But you know what? I don't think people hate us because we look different. I think they hate us because we're smart. I have a cousin who gets beaten up at least once a week because he always gets 100% on his tests. You see? That's why people hate us." Wow, I didn't want to get any deeper into that discussion. If someone hated you, did it really matter why? I didn't know. Maybe it mattered. At least there didn't seem to be any prejudice about who went to Edgeview. From what I'd seen, the place was about as mixed as any school I'd ever been to. Trouble was colorblind. "I really do know lots of stuff," Cheater said. "Ask me anything. Did you know that karate started out in China? Then it went to Okinawa in the 1600s. Didn't get to Japan until 1910. Edgeview's alternative school was built in 1932. But it started out as a factory. They rebuilt it 20 years ago, but it's just been a school for the last 4.5 years. He really does know just about everything, Torchy said. It's kind of amazing. Come on, ask me anything, Cheater said. I realized he wasn't going to stop until I asked him a question. Who invented radium? Madame Curie, with her husband Pierre in 1898, for which they got the Nobel Prize in 1903. He stared at me as if I'd just asked him to spell cat. Come on, Torchy could have answered that one. Hey, Torchy said. So I've said before to my class that it's fun sometimes to take nonfiction books and look up facts that they throw out and see if they're true or not. So I would invite you to look up where karate started, if karate interests you, or how radium was invented, and check the facts and see if they're correct. Sorry, Cheater told him. He looked back at me. All right, I'd give him my hardest question. Who played the monster in Abbott and Costello's Meet Frankenstein? That was a real stumper. Most people would guess Boris Karloff. They'd be wrong. Cheater didn't even blink. Glenn Strange, he said, giving the correct answer. Wow, I guess he really might know everything, except how to stay out of trouble. A bell rang in the hall. Dinner time, Torchy announced, getting to his feet like someone who had just been invited to take a stroll to the electric chair. I'll grab some seats, Cheater said, dashing out the door. They're short on seats? I asked Torchy. He shook his head. No, Cheater just likes to be first in line. Then he leaned over to whisper even though we were alone. He doesn't really need glasses, but he keeps bugging his folks for them. Don't tell him I told you, okay? Sure. I followed Torchy out the door. How's the food? I asked. As we walked toward the stairs, I noticed that nobody seemed to be in a rush. I scanned the halls for Bloodbath and spotted him safely ahead of us. On a good day, it stinks, Torchy said, but you'll get used to it. We joined the herd, shuffling toward the cafeteria on the first floor. Even from far off, as the smells reached me, I got the feeling Torchy wasn't kidding about the food. I grabbed a tray and went through the line with Torchy, letting a bored-looking woman with a net over her hair and clear plastic gloves on her hands give me a plate loaded with various piles of glop. I wondered if the gloves were for our protection or for hers. We wove our way between the round tables that seemed to have been dropped at random on cracked linoleum. Heading toward Cheater, who stood there signaling his success in getting some seats by waving one arm. As I followed Torchy to our spot near the far wall and plunked down on a wobbly plastic chair, I could see that the kids were split into different groups, with anywhere from 4 to 8 kids at a table. I'd guess there were about 200 kids altogether. Bloodbath was hanging out with a bunch of tough guys at a couple tables in one corner. Everything about them, clothes, hair, attitudes, said, don't mess with us. The tables nearest them were empty. I guess nobody wanted to get too close to the sharks. On a hunch, I looked at the table farthest from Bloodbath. Yep, the smallest, most scared kids were all clustered there, like a bunch of little bait fish. We used to have more tables, Torchy said, but they got rid of all the square ones last month. He almost had to shout. There was a lot more talking than eating going on around us, filling the room with noise that seemed to wash over me from every direction. Rectangles, Cheater said, correcting him. They were longer than they were wide, so that made them, yeah, whatever, Torchy said, glaring at Cheater. Anyhow, I guess they figured round tables would make us behave better or something. Fascinating. I turned my attention to choking down the food. It's hard to believe that anyone could ruin macaroni and cheese, but the school cooks had managed to do just that. And the potatoes were awful. These mashed potatoes really suck, I said. That's because they're turnips, Cheater explained, a popular food source in Germany before the introduction of the potato. I decided not to ask what the stringy green stuff was until now. I thought Mom was a pretty bad cook. Her idea of tomato sauce was ketchup with a dash of Parmesan cheese. As I ate, I realized she could have been far worse, and at least back home we'd have takeout chicken once a week from Cluck Shack and lots of pizza. I guess I wouldn't get anything like that for a while. Between bites, I checked out my companions. Besides Torchy and Cheater, there was one kid at our table. He looked pretty tough. Big shoulders, dark hairs, eyebrows that seemed to want to grow together to form one furry strip across his forehead. And the beginnings of a stubby beard threatened to burst through his skin. A year or two from now, I bet he'd be shaving twice a day. They called him Lucky. I almost laughed when I heard that. I didn't see how anyone who deserved the nickname could be stuck in a place like Edgeview. Unlucky was more like it, or maybe unfriendly. He didn't seem all that happy to meet me. Not that I cared. By the time I choked down half the macaroni, I had the whole place figured out, except for one person. Dear Mom, I got a new roommate. He's cool. We get along great. I've been showing him around. He seems kinda scared at first, but I guess that's normal. He looks kind of like Cousin Walter, you know, brown hair and blue eyes, but his nose is smaller. Well, I guess everyone's nose is smaller than Walter's, as he has both ears. Oh yeah, his name's Martin. And he has both ears. I'm not sure how that's relevant. I'm working really hard and learning lots of stuff. Mr. Parsons said my last report was almost intelligible. That's exactly what he wrote. I guess that's good. And Miss Nomad told me I had a flair for spontaneous expression. That's exactly what she wrote too, whatever that means. I'm still really sorry about the parrot, even though I didn't do it. Honest, I'm sure the feathers will grow back. Well, I guess that's it for now. Your son, Philip. So I think this is from Torchy because it's burned down at the bottom. And in case you're wondering why I was having so much trouble reading, I suggest you try to read Torchy's writing. Yeah, okay. So I believe we're on to the next chapter. So until next time, be thinking about, why do you think all the characters have negative nicknames? What is the author's purpose in doing that? I still haven't really got a good idea, but they are relevant somehow. I just know it. Take care, you guys. Bye.